Are we recording? Yeah. The time is currently 7:42 p.m. My name is Professor Ginkgo. Myself and my research assistant are here in the Submarine Explorer 1, investigating the strange light sources reported in this area. We've just gotten down to the proper depth, and we'll be beginning our expedition. It seems the further down we get, the more often we're seeing evolved forms of Pokemon. Almost as if to survive at this depth, one must be stronger. At first, we were seeing mostly Tentacool and Magikarp, but recently we've been seeing more Tentacruel. Keeping an eye out for Gyarados, and we have an escape route just in case. We've been exploring for a couple hours now, and... What was that? No, we've suddenly lost power. How is that possible? Let me see if I can get a signal through to radio the surface.
Professor, what's that?
Are those... lights? Could that be what we've been searching for?
Look, they're getting closer.
You're right. It almost looks like... Sweet mother of Arceus, what is that thing? The year is 1999. Pokemon Red and Blue have been incredibly successful, and Game Freak is just about to pump out its first sequel. They have no way of knowing what a money-printing machine this franchise is going to be, but they might be starting to have an inkling of it. But a new game needs something fresh, a bunch of new, marketable mons that they can make plushies out of. Enter the Johto Dex, now complete with a new lineup of some of the cutest new Pokemon imaginable. We've got the starters like Totodile and Cyndaquil, and Chikorita's also there. Babies like Munchlax and Togepi, and one of the most unique new Pokemon, Chinchou. And by the way, if you find this video interesting at any point, be sure to drop a like, because it's free and I like seeing the little number go up. You can also hype the channel, which is a new thing, and I don't really know what it does, but you can hype the channel. Chinchou, as well as its evolution Lantern, have what I like to call opposing types, where it's a dual type, but one of those types is super effective against the other. Think Scovillain being Fire Grass, or Metatite being Fighting Psychic. In Chinchou and Lantern's case, the type is Water Electric. This typing is so unique, in fact, that Chinchou and Lantern are the only ones in the whole franchise to have this typing. Well, almost the only ones anyway. Now, as you might expect, generating electricity underwater isn't exactly the easiest nor the safest thing in the world. So I want to figure out how they do it, as well as how it helps them survive in the wild. To do that, let's head over to our real-world experts on underwater electricity, the electric eel. Now, as the name suggests, an electric eel can deliver a powerful shock to anything within the vicinity, up to 860 volts in fact, and here's how they do it. To start, a signal will be sent from the eel's brain down the spinal column to a special electric organ which produces the electricity. Eels actually have 3 of these organs, arranged along the length of their body. These organs are stacked with hundreds of disc-shaped cells called electrocytes, which normally produce positively charged ions and maintain a positive charge on the outside of the cell and a negative charge within. And if this is getting a little bit too organic chemistry for you, stick with me, I promise it's almost over. So these cells usually produce positive ions, but when the signal is sent from the brain, some of these cells throw it in reverse and start pulling these positive ions back inside. This flips it, so now every other cell has a negative charge on the outside and a positive charge on the inside. These alternating charges carry a current and turn the organ into a living battery, building up until an electric shock is formed. Chinchou seems to do it almost the exact same way. It has 2 Elysium coming out of the back, which I believe are actually modified dorsal fins, and an Eska, or Lure, at the end of each, which produce different charges. The gold Pokédex entry confirms this when it says that it shoots positive and negative electricity between the tips of its 2 antennae and zaps its enemies. I imagine Chinchou has 2 of these electrical organs, one at the end of each antenna, and when it wants to start producing electricity, it'll send a signal to one of them to start producing negative ions, thus creating a spark between the 2 bulbs. Now, there might be a different Pokemon that comes to mind when we talk about the electric eel, one that also has a long and wavy body and produces electricity. I'm of course referring to Electros and the other members of the Dynamo line. And if you'd like to see a full video about them, be sure to leave it in the comments down below. Now, design-wise, Electros is more akin to the sea lamprey, but we can also see clear inspiration from the electric eel, so it's really more of a cross of the 2. Whichever way it goes, it feels like it should be water type. I, for one, know that when I was playing Black and White for the first time, I was stunned when I would use a grass-type move on it and it would not be super effective. The problem with this is that they're not water types, like, at all. They're pure electric, and what's more, they're never really seen interacting with water. Dynamo and Electric float around caves, while Electros uses its newfound arms to sort of crawl around. But then there's Electros's Pokédex entry in Pokemon Black, which says that they crawl out of the ocean using their arms. They will attack prey on shore and immediately drag it into the ocean. Contrast this with Chinchou and Lantern, who are most commonly found deep in the midnight zone of the ocean. To me, this indicates that the Chinchou line and the Dynamo line share some sort of common ancestor with each other. We already know that long-term evolution is a thing in Pokemon, alongside the normal evolution we're used to from things like Pokemon Legends Arceus, where Pokemon like Cleaver will eventually become Scizor over a couple hundred years, or other Hisuian variants will get smaller changes to adapt to new environments. Some Pokemon, like Dugtrio and Wugtrio, are even confirmed to have evolved from the same place. So it seems to me that our electrifying Pokemon might have some sort of shared lineage, maybe a different electric Pokemon that originated in the Sunlit or the Twilight Zone. But while some members of the species dove down deeper into the depths, other members swam up, eventually learning to hunt prey on land. Now that we're talking about evolution, let's talk about Chinchou's natural evolution, Lantern. Lantern does things slightly differently from Chinchou in that instead of using electricity to light its lures, it uses some new friends it's made in the form of bioluminescent bacteria. In the Ruby Pokédex, it says that it produces light by causing a chemical reaction between bacteria and its bodily fluids inside the antenna. Now, let's get into a few reasons why this might be the case. For one, it's a given that as the evolved form, Lantern has more control over its electric type abilities than Chinchou does. I think one reason for the change in light source is that while Chinchou needs to keep the electricity-producing organs outside of its body in order to avoid shocking itself, Lantern is just built different and can keep the organs on the inside of its body without any actual danger to it. There's precedent for this sort of thing with Pokemon like Pikachu who store electricity in specialized sacs in their cheeks rather than on the inside of their body. The other good reason for Lantern choosing electricity over bioluminescence is the sheer power of the light. You see, the light that Lantern produces via bacteria is so much brighter than the light that Chinchou produces that it can be used not just as a tool, but also as a weapon. Let's consult the Gold and Silver Pokédex entries. The gold one states that the light it emits is so bright that it can illuminate the sea's surface from a depth of over 3 miles. And for those of us that are too American to use the metric system, that's a depth of 4,800 meters down, well below the Midnight Zone, which is the Lantern's usual range, and down into the Abyssal Zone. This is a depth at which the light itself is not able to penetrate, and yet, somehow a Lantern's light is able to get through. So this is a very strong light. Now let's check the Silver Pokédex to see what it does with it. It blinds prey with an intense burst of light, then swallows the immobilized prey in a single gulp. So the primary use of this extremely intense light is to stun prey species before swallowing them whole and eating them alive. Cool. Now, unfortunately, if we're going to talk any more about Chinchou and Lantern, we first have to get into their real inspiration. Chinchou and Lantern are both inspired by the anglerfish, more specifically the football fish. And while Chinchou and Lantern are cute, friendly, just seem like all-around good guys, the anglerfish is, well, we'll call it aesthetically challenged. Now, this term, anglerfish, it's actually an umbrella term used to describe any fish that's an ambush predator. Frogfishes, for instance, camouflage themselves as rocks and wait for prey to draw too close before striking. They're anglerfish as well. All anglerfish can be broken down into 5 suborders, but the one that we'll be talking about specifically is the suborder Ceratioidae, the deep-sea anglers, which is home to such families as the wolf trap angler and the black sea devil. Don't they sound friendly? Now, just like our friends Chinchou and Lantern, these little balls of love can only be found at extreme depths, around 1,000 meters down to be specific, in the Midnight Zone, called as such because it's one of the few places on Earth where the sun cannot penetrate. This is so far down that even the sun doesn't want to see what's down there, and from what I've seen so far, it's got good reason. Compare that to Chinchou and Lantern, who in Gen 3 you have to catch by diving down to the ocean floor, which is crazy, by the way. Like, Professor Birch, I'm sorry. I know you said catch them all, but you're going to have to handle this one on your own because I am not doing it. Now, I mentioned that anglerfish are ambush predators, and that's exactly what they do. A deep-sea angler will send oxygen through the Elysium to the bioluminescent bacteria that's inside their lure, causing them to light up, much in the same way that Lantern does it. Now, it'll start to bob and jerk the lure around, hoping to draw in the curious shrimp or squid. There's all kinds of evidence for Chinchou and Lantern working the exact same way, from Pokédex entries like in Ultra Sun stating that its 2 antennae glow softly to lure in prey, or how they get the ability Illuminate, which raises the likelihood of encountering wild Pokémon. The anglerfish is able to remain hidden for 2 reasons. For one, it's got an extremely dark color, which lets it blend in with its midnight environment. Secondly, it's got special mirror-like tissue in the esca, which keeps it from shining a light on itself and accidentally revealing its lovely smile. So now, once the prey has been drawn in, what does the anglerfish do? Well, it's not a very fast swimmer, and just like Chinchou and Lantern, who have a speed stat at... Oh, well, they have a speed stat at... I think I need to lie down. Right, so, as I was saying, the deep-sea angler mostly just drifts around, but when prey draws near, it can make a very quick motion to catch the prey in its teeth. Now, this is where things start to get really horrifying. See these lovely teeth that our friend has? They've got this inward curve to them and can also be pressed down towards the inside of the mouth. This means that once something is bitten, it can't escape backwards and really has no choice but to swim further into the mouth towards the stomach, where it will be digested alive. And by the way, if you're more interested in these horrifying dex entries, you should subscribe and stick around for next time, where we're going to talk about a species of fungi that turns insects into zombies. And if you're looking for something a little more lighthearted, you can check out my last video, where I talked about the ecology of the Bidoof line, which is just a friend to all Pokemon. As for what it eats, an anglerfish is carnivorous and will typically eat anything it can fit in its mouth, including things that are much bigger than it. See, deep-sea anglers have these light, flexible bones, allowing them to distend both their jaws and their stomachs to enormous size, allowing them to eat things up to twice its size, much like a boa constrictor. And being such low energy consumers, a meal like that will last an anglerfish a long, long time. Thinking about that, let's look at some of the design choices for Lantern. If you look, it seems like its stomach is protruding out heavily from its body, meaning that at the time you captured this friendly fellow, it's just made a meal of some poor Pokemon and is actively in the process of digesting it. As for what it's digesting, could be anything unlucky enough to get lured in, but is most likely something like a Tentacool, a Luminion, or an Octillery, which are all found in the same areas. As for what's above it on the food chain, one good example might be Frillish. We can see here in new Pokemon Snap that a Frillish might be a primary predator of Lantern, trying to grab it and drag it away. Another good example of predators might be Inkay and Malamar, which you can also see here in Pokemon Snap, trying to hypnotize a Chinchou into falling asleep. Now, I would be remiss if I finished this video without talking about one of the most interesting aspects of deep-sea anglers, their extreme sexual dimorphism. Now, at the time when Chinchou and Lantern were introduced in Generation 2, there were no different gendered Pokemon, except, like, Nidoran, and even now that they have been introduced, the differences can be pretty subtle. In the animal kingdom, however, differences can be much more pronounced, like male peacocks having that bright, colorful plumage. Anglerfish take it to a whole new level. See, when you're thinking of an anglerfish, you're thinking of a female. This is a female, this is a female, these are each lovely ladies. Well, what does the male look like? Well, it's slightly less imposing. You see, males are these tiny little guys, actually kind of remind me of Wishy-Washy a little bit. Males are born above the midnight zone, where there's still a little bit of light, and after snacking on some plankton and growing to a whopping 4 centimeters, will travel down back into the depths, hoping to find a mate. The reproductive cycle of an anglerfish is like almost none other, and it's called sexual parasitism. After descending to the proper depth, the male anglerfish will use its highly developed sense of smell to begin searching for a mate. After it's found one, it will bite into the body of the female, latching on and beginning to suck nutrients from the host. After a while of this, the male body will eventually begin to degenerate, leaving nothing but a blob of flesh attached to the female, which it can eventually use to lay more eggs, starting the cycle over again. Alright, I think we've got enough information now that we can pull it all together into a short, concrete idea of Chinchou and Lantern's ecology. As a young Chinchou, you're born the same as every other Pokemon, from an egg. After you're born, you find yourself just above the midnight zone, where there's still a little bit of light. After spending some time munching on some plankton and maybe the stray Wishy-Washy, you grow to a point where you can use your electrical prowess to take down prey a little bit bigger than yourself, including species like Tentacool, Magikarp, and Shelder. The older you get, the further down you go, using the light at the end of your antennae to communicate with others of your species and to stay out of the hunting zones of some of your predators like Inkay and Malamar. You spend your days in the way that most Midwestern fathers could only dream of: fishing, waiting, and not much else. Eventually, after eating enough, you'll grow into a fully evolved Lantern, now using bioluminescent bacteria to produce your light instead of electricity, able now to stun and consume prey much larger, like Luminion or Tentacruel. Even a Gyarados is no threat to you with your quadruple effective electric-type moves. Your only concern is the rare Frillish, which will take you away to its den if given the opportunity. If you sense a group is nearby, you can cut off the flow of fluids to the bacteria in your lure, cutting off the light source and hiding yourself in the darkness. If you do happen to be caught, your powerful electric shock should be enough to allow you to get away. With any luck, anything else down in the Midnight Zone will know to stay away from the faint light glowing in the shadows. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this video has helped you learn a little bit more about Chinchou and provided you with a greater appreciation for the amazing real-world species that inspire our favorite game. If you've got a Pokemon you'd like me to cover the ecology of next, I hope you'll leave a comment, and I'll see you next time on the Pokécologist.